A big welcome back to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. Join us for episode 6 already of season 12, our turning Japanese season. And I am joined, as ever, by my wingman, looking particularly radiant tonight, John. I've got a festive glow about you. How are we doing?
I'm very well and very excited about what's just about to happen, Stephen.
Ditto. Because unusually, in a break from the norm, we love a change. We love to do things differently. We're also joined by this week's guest for our introduction this week. How are you doing, Sarah?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Delighted that you're able to join us. We've got a rip-roaring chat to have with you very soon. But you are our... is this a first, John? Did we used to do it kind of like this? I can't remember. We've been doing this.
We did. I think
Did we?
initially we used to do a wee intro with it, not for very long, because I think
Mhm.
we sometimes asked guests to sit for 5 minutes while you and I chatted nonsense, and we thought that was just inappropriate. So, but this is the first time in about 10 seasons we've done this. So
Mhm.
it's brilliant. So thank you, Sarah, for
Yes, you're more than welcome to join us for our shortened intro. John, that's a warning. Shortened intro.
good. I like that. I like that.
Quick.
Now, also, we should say that Sarah Perry is a returning guest. Sarah knows the script. She's been here before. Season 10, episode 7, March 2024. There you go. Will we fire in and talk about Sarah's 2024, Stephen, or have you got a wee Japanesey thing you want to do?
Exactly, because we need to hear a Japanese word of the week. And we were speaking to Sarah in the green room, and we asked Sarah if she knew any Japanese, and she doesn't. So today, Sarah is going to be a learning day for maybe not all, but most of our listeners, and for John, and for you too. And our Japanese word of the week, we're back to food. Yeah, one of our favourite topics, Sarah. Maybe picked that up by now. And this week's word is kuchasabishi. Kuchasabishi. Kuchasabishi, right?
Kuchasabishi.
That's it.
That was like
Sarah,
Italian. Kuchasabishi. That's like the
well,
Godfather.
the Japanese Italian. You can strike up the picture. I'm going to ask AI to produce a picture of that Japanese Italian John later and publish it. However, the definition, John, of this word is when you're not hungry, but you eat because your mouth is lonely.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah,
Now,
definitely.
my take on it is it's the Japanese version of the munchies.
Maybe. I can see that. Yeah, I can see where you're
Yeah.
coming from with that. Yeah.
Kuchasabishi, the munchies. It even almost sounds like it.
Okay. So, Sarah,
That's it.
are you suitably furnished with Japanese vocabulary for this evening? Will that do?
Every day is a school day, isn't it?
Most
Learn to-
definitely.
Exactly. And continuing the Japanese food theme and the festive theme that we are now well into. And Sarah's got her Christmas decks up in the background, so I think the front of her house is absolutely bedecked in lights and stuff like that. She was saying to us before we came on here.
Really into Christmas.
Another learning, and there's some people know this, some people don't, but Christmas Day tradition in Japan of eating a bucket of KFC is a thing.
Are you making that up?
No, this isn't like truth or lie. This is truth. Yeah. So they'll order a KFC for Christmas Day and they can start ordering it in November. And then on Christmas Day, they queue, pick up their buckets, take it to the house, and that's their Christmas feast. That's a thing.
Take it to the house.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking to myself, that saves a lot of hassle. Just let the colonel do all the work.
Now, listen, Sarah Perry's about to be thinking, what is this podcast you're talking about tonight? So
that's all right. So that's our Japanese segment over for this week, Sarah. You'll
Yeah.
be pleased to hear. We can now jump into the real reason we're here, the more important reason that we're here, and that's to talk about mainly, but not only, your national backyard team championship in UK, must be said. Um, outing. That's a that's a wee bit of a like, inappropriate way to say it was in October. But yeah, your appearance at that particular event, which yeah is hit the headlines in the running world, I think it's fair to say, Sarah. Um, many of us were tracking that amidst getting on with our day to day our day to day life. Just let us know about where did it take place in the first place?
So it was Thetford, um, somewhere down south. And so it's usually, so it's usually at Suffolk.
Uh-huh.
Recently moved the course, so they've looked for a course that's flatter. And I think there was some issues with the old course that they used to run it at. Like I think there was some issues with flooding.
Yeah.
Some of it getting a little bit saturated. So to give us like the best chance of going as far as we could as a team, and they moved it to Thetford, and it worked really well. So it's Thetford Forest, so it's all it's pretty much all of the loop is in within the forest. Yeah.
And oh, sorry, John,
No, I've already got side questions.
go
So
for it. Go for it. I'm
you,
used to this, Sarah.
yeah, you mentioned about looking at for it to be a bit flatter to give the team the best chance, but you mentioned as well about the reason for moving it because the other one was liable to flooding. What kind of terrain were you on? Did it turn to mud or was it like fire track? What was?
Yeah, it was like mainly fire tracks. There was a little bit of grass, but it was mainly like super flat, kind of fire tracks, like very compact, very runnable,
Yeah.
obviously, but like very compact. And I think I know we'll talk about it, but I think I suffered a little bit in terms of that because that's not my terrain at all. Like there was almost like a north-south divide in terms of that because like everyone from like obviously there was a couple of Scottish runners, there was like people from the north, like lots of us do lots of mountain running and
Mhm.
like trail running, and then like people from like the south seem to be like, oh, we do a lot more like road running or so like for some people that was super comfortable. For me, that wasn't comfortable at all. Like I see why they do it also because obviously they want us to be able to run a fast lap in the when things get harder, you can get round quicker. And I
Yeah.
think in some respects that does work. But I think it's also hard the fact that like there's not much to see, it's not a very varied route. You are just looking at trees for like 59 hours or whatever it was, you know.
That's the number 59.
59. And just to clarify, this is part of the Satellite World Championships as well, which is coordinated by Lazarus Lake and Big's Backyard Ultra. More on that later.
Yeah, so sorry, were you going to ask me something? I was just going to say that yeah, because I wasn't familiar with the format and how it would work, because
Mhm.
obviously I'm a bit familiar with the backyard format, but this was really different in that there was something like 63 different teams across the world, and we all started at 1. So obviously for us it was like 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Some people were starting it in the middle of the night, but we all started at the same time. And there was 15 of us on each team, 15 of us that had qualified for each team, which obviously that's quite different too. Like usually you have quite a big crowd, quite a lot of people
Mhm.
to work with, someone different to chat to at the start of every lap.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of branded like a race within a race because you're competing as a team. Like, you're trying to stay in for as long as you can to accumulate as many points, but you're also all racing against each other for a place to Biggs in October next year. So, yeah.
Karen Nichol would not forgive us if we asked about the gender split. How many females were in that 15?
So there was 3 of us, which I think that's good. Last time, like 2 years ago, there was no females. I qualified, and at the time I worked like full time in a primary school, and you can't have term time holidays. I was lucky this time in that, like, because I work for the council, I teach adults now. They're a little bit more flexible and kind of understood that it's quite a good opportunity for me. So I was really lucky, and it made it a bit like that little bit more special. I think that I couldn't go last time, but yeah, I thought 3 out of 15, as females, good. I think that's
Well,
good.
it's an upward trajectory, isn't it, from what it was?
Yeah.
So yeah, long may that continue.
Yeah, and I know Karen's been very vocal about wanting to smash through that what was male dominated. Watch yourself, guys. There's a shift taking place. So, but Karen was really, really proud of getting her place on it, and I think it's brilliant that there was 3 female runners. But more on what transpired is brilliant. I like the way that you've described it as a race within a race. This was not in the question set. When did the games begin?
I don't know, really. It's hard to say, because I'd say, like, one of my tactics is to be quite guarded. So, like, I'm not really open to other people's games or tactics, I guess. I think when we were down to maybe 3, when there was 3 of us left, we talked about working as a team, and we said, well, maybe we could try and get into the 70s. If we can keep all of us in to the 70s, then at the time we thought it was quite likely that would get all of us onto the at-large list. So the winner would obviously get the golden ticket, and then the other 2 might get on the at-large list. So we talked about that I guess that's a tactic, isn't it? Obviously that didn't happen. And it wouldn't have got us on the at-large list anyway, so we could have like pushed and pushed. And I think it's something like, I think it would have had to be mid-80s to get on the at-large list. Yeah, so we wouldn't have even been close with 70s.
Ridiculous, really.
It is, isn't it? It's madness when you. But also, if you think about how far backyard running has come, like, like we're just going to be going longer and longer and longer. But if you look at what we were doing a couple of years ago, like, it's nothing in comparison, really.
Oh, the ceiling's been smashed. Continues to be.
Stephen used the term about upward trajectory. It's certainly Backyard Ultras has had that. We spoke recently. We closed season 11 speaking to Keith Russell, and blew my mind. His mindset and what goes through his mind, and also his attitude towards training as well. But yeah, the backyard thing. Now, when we spoke in March, you said that you only stopped because you had to drive up the road.
I did, yeah.
So I'm assuming you had a lift this time. Was everything sorted that way?
So, as I say, I managed to get the whole week off work. And my partner managed to get the whole week off work too, which it was just such like a lot off my mind, knowing that, he's going to crew me. And I did a podcast before I went and did the backyard, and he asked me how far I wanted to go, like what my yardage were, like what my goal was, and I said that I wanted to like run until I couldn't anymore. And it's like it gives you that ability to like push your limits and see what you can do, because you've got someone that can just scoot you up and get you home. You don't need to worry about the logistics, do you? So yeah, Luke
Yeah,
looked at.
yeah, you've not got that sort of baggage that you're carrying, like, and just in terms of thinking about, oh, if I drop out then, or if I do this, everything you're catered for almost. And we love giving a shout out to other halves and partners and friends and stuff who help support us achieve what our dreams and goals are. So yeah, feel free to give your partner a shout out just to acknowledge their role in that.
Thanks to Luke for
Well
cleaning up my
done.
chickens. No.
You've just used a phrase there when you said you were on a previous podcast about being asked how far, and you saying that I want to see how far I can go. That's reminding me of another previous guest, Kaylee Webster, we had on. Kaylee recently won the Golspie Backyard Ultra with 31 yards. Absolutely brilliant. And the assist was Vic Owens. I'm sure that's the first time in UK backyard history that two females have finished being the winner and the assist. So that's why I was saying to the guys, there's a shift and it's actually happening. This also wasn't in the question set, Sarah, but I make no apologies. What's your thoughts on the rise of females in the backyard ultra environment?
You know what it is? I think about those females that you've mentioned, and I think, I know Vic quite well, and I know that she's done some huge challenges, and I think it's the thing with women is, I'm not saying that men aren't, but one thing you see again and again and again is that women are very organised, they're very efficient, and they've got that, once they get it into their heads that they're going to do something, they're quite stubborn. So yeah, I think like we need to keep an eye. Even like Julie Bethune, who was on the team. I think she's also one to watch in the backyard scene. I think like there'll be lots of women that oops, happened. I don't know what happened, sorry.
That's all right.
You're back, that's it.
I think there's lots of women that haven't reached the limits yet, and I think we'll see that in the coming like years.
It's scary and exciting at the same time, isn't it? I love it.
Yeah.
It really is. It's brilliant. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Organised and stubborn. You just went and actually just described my other half.
That's all of us.
We'll see if she's still listening, John. If I get any sort
They
of.
could.
You'll know soon enough. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I do remember after the last time John spoke to you, and he was kind of regaling the podcast content to me before I had a chance to listen, and he was saying, and she had to drive home, otherwise I think she'd have still been going. She'd have still been running.
I didn't mention it at the time, but I also had, sorry, that's my dog barking. I also had the Southwest Coastal Pass like 3 weeks after, so it was like a mix of the two.
Yeah. And actually, you said something. This is my side question. See, it's not just John who gets side questions around here. But yeah, I was quite interested about that north-south divide. So where's home for you? What's your hometown?
So I'm Cumbria, so I'm just outside Cockermouth, so I'm like West Cumbria.
Okay, because I'm always interested to see where people draw that line, because it's different. Eventually it gets that far south that you're from the south, but people draw that line in different places. But your speciality being almost, and for me, what I see on your Instagram and your content and stuff like that is in the mountains, and this is almost like certainly no unfamiliar territory. That would be the wrong way of putting it, but it's no your preferred terrain as such, but you've got a prowess at it. I Like, it's okay. The dog is very interested in this, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say. Is it a quandary at all for you, as opposed to backyard format versus up in them there hills? I know what one would maybe draw you in, but like, your prowess at backyard ultra is, well, there for all to see. How do you feel? Like, are you 50-50? Are you?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, really. I think, like, my heart is obviously in the hills, and I love point to points. I think the thing that I really love to do is like solo adventures or like KT type adventures in the countryside. Like, first and foremost, that's where I want to be. But I think every now and again, it's good to do something that tests you in a different way. And I think that the thing with the backyard is that it plays to some of my strengths. Like, I've never been a fast runner. Um, but I've always been interested in seeing how far I can run. And yeah, I just don't think I've found like the ceiling with backyard running yet. And it just tests me in a different way, and I like that about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
in the head. Yeah,
yeah, the mindfulness
You
game.
mentioned a point to point in the southwest coastal path, which is 630 miles between both of these points. And you set an FKT. 2024 has been quite an astounding year for Sarah Perry. So I've just got the stats here. Set an FKT of 630 miles, 13 days, 11 hours, and 31 minutes, which has taken over a day off the previous records, which was set by Julie Gardner. 13 days. How much? My first question there, my first question is food. My second question, how much sleep was involved in that 13 days, Sarah?
So, did you say the first question was food? Is
Yeah,
that what you
but
said?
That's
yeah,
coming later.
I'll do that later.
Okay, so in terms of sleep, so I figured out that I could run like between 50 and 60 miles a day, probably quite comfortably. And I say comfortably, that's not the word that I should have used at all.
It was achievable.
20, I thought that I could run like between 50 and 60 miles a day. And what I'd done is I'd planned to stay like in Airbnbs or B&Bs along the route every night. So the idea was I figured out that that would be the best way to kind of rest and recover and then go again the next day. Camping just isn't my thing. I didn't, that's not what I wanted to do. And I just figured I'd be in a better condition, with a proper rest. Um, so that worked well for kind of the first maybe 8 or 9 days, and then there was an issue with getting two of the ferries. The weather was bad. It was during one of the named storms, so they weren't running the ferries. And the roads in Cornwall are very much like the roads here in the lake. So I had to get a bus like right the way around because obviously I did it self-supported. I couldn't have any like help. And that took hours off my schedule. It just took forever. So then I was kind of like running through the night to try and get back on schedule, and I never really got back on schedule. So I would just get later and later and later to the accommodation. I think for the last like couple of nights, I was there like the next day, basically when I should have been checking out. And people were so kind because they were like, "Oh, just come in for an hour and charge your phone and get a shower and eat something." But it was just like, but I think it was all, I never had any doubt in my mind. Like, I don't know, it was really strange. It was just like, yeah, that has happened, but we just get on with it. Like, there was something in my head where you just dealt with it and kept moving forward. It was really strange, but I think I was so set because because I'd tried the previous year and failed, and I think because in that 2 years leading up to it, I'd put so much time and energy and like headspace into it,
Mm.
and it was just like, yeah, it's happening. That's it. I'm putting it to bed.
Without these things that happened, like the storm, the ferries, you might have taken an even bigger whack off of that record then, you know?
I think I always had my eye on the self-supported record.
Mhm.
Like obviously I had it in my mind what the overall women's record is, or was. But I think like doing it supported is very different to
Yeah.
doing it supported. Um,
Yeah. You say you like a challenge. That's a challenge. It's brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, well done. It's huge. Some
Mm.
way to spend a fortnight's holiday though.
you know what, though? It absolutely was. Like I
Uh-huh.
just it's such a beautiful stretch of coastline, and like it changes. Like every day was different and beautiful, and I just felt like I was like immersed in nature for so long. And the other thing with like those really long challenges, I've never really done anything that long before, but I just got to a point, like almost a sweet spot where I just eased into it. Like this is just what I'm doing now. I get up, I run a long way, eat loads of rubbish, and then try and get some sleep and charge my watch and my phone. The constant battle of trying to charge things.
That's it. It's like you're in the flow state of this almost fortnight, and you've just described it really well there. But you've opened the door for food there, Sarah.
Okay.
Eating a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
What what is your well view of choice for such an occasion?
Okay, so for the coastal path, I actually read the reports for the people that had gone for the self-supported FKTs previously, and what lots of people had chosen to do was send themselves like boxes along the route with nutrition and like new clothes and things like that. And I just thought like it's so stressful anyway, trying to keep to a schedule, trying to get to ferries on time and accommodation on time, that I just decided to just have whatever I could get en route. So I didn't have any
Okay.
spot option. And there seems to be a co-op everywhere. So I stopped at every co-op and just had whatever I could get. And then just like it's the seaside, isn't it? So I had things like hot sugared donuts was a definite highlight. Very nice. Just anything I could get my hands on, to be honest. But usually, I think it depends, isn't it? Like on a backyard, um, I'll eat real food mostly because I think you've got the time between laps. But if I'm doing a race or something at higher intensity, then I'd go for gels, sports nutrition, that sort of thing.
And then on the backyard, real food, what any tips, any sort of that you're prepared to share with us just in case they're top secret, Sarah only information? It's also okay.
Someone said to me, I'm surprised you didn't turn into a toasty because I had so many toasties. But I just had
Yeah.
this wave in the week before. I was like, oh, because all we had was like a camping stove. So I was thinking, what could we have? Obviously, you can heat water and have noodles, like pot noodle style things, which
Hmm.
that's quite a lot of like wedge of calories, isn't it? Obviously, like the usual things that you'd expect, like flapjacks and sweets and but yeah, we thought toasties would be a great idea.
And how do you toast? Do you put them in one of those things?
Yeah, yeah, we had a little like stove top skillet type.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know the things you mean.
Yeah,
I've not got one, but I've always quite fancied one.
that would give you the same type of toasty crust as you get at Talbotthwaite in the Lakeland. They do them on the braziers there. That's the same kind of gig you would get that. But detail, Sarah, what's the filling in the
So
toasty?
sometimes cheese and beans. I did have a can of tuna in the box, but it didn't make the cut. I did have. I was like, oh, I'll take some chocolate too, and I could make them like sweet. But that didn't make the cut either on the day. So yeah, it was mainly just the cheese and beans.
Cheese and
Perfect.
bean toasty.
Yeah.
How about you writing that down? Jeez.
That's look at my pen. It's going like the clappers.
There'll be people listening to this driving, going, cheese and beans. Getting
They'll be-
about it, man.
They'll be
Brilliant.
researching those stovetop toasty makers as well. Like they're
Mm.
iron skillets, and they've got handles on, and they come
Wait till they
down
find
like
them.
that.
Buy them. No, I'm joking. I'm not.
You get
Can I
Sarah
ask-
Perry endorsed ones.
Yeah, it'd
Link,
be like
link
that.
in the show notes.
They could
It'd
burn
be
my
like
feet
that.
to the
It'd be like
top.
that. It'd be like that George Foreman thing. They've now got a Sarah Perry camping stove, camping skillet. Can I ask, Sarah, about your feet for 13 days? How were your feet?
They were ruined, and that's because it was so muddy. There'd been quite a lot of rain, so the coastal path was just absolutely covered in like really thick mud. And there's a few bits where you kind of drop down onto the beach too, and so like the mix of sand and mud, it was just awful. They were ruined. That's all there is to say about that, really.
Okay. Well,
I
I've got
also-
two. Sorry,
sorry.
you go.
Just going to say, I thought it was really clever taking like merino socks, and this is gross. I can't believe I'm telling you this. So I now you're listening. But I thought, because obviously I didn't send myself any new kit, so I thought it was really clever. I'll just take like 4 pairs of merino socks, and that'll be great because I might be able to rinse them and reuse them. And because it was so muddy, and it like we'd done lots of recce's on the coastal path, and it'd never been like muddy when we'd visited.
Mhm.
So it was a shock. And yeah, I think the first day when I took my shoes off, I'd had like holes through my socks. And I was like, oh no, 4 pairs of socks is not going to work. So
Cut them.
yeah,
So
we got to find
had-
more.
we had a guest on. That was just last week that Des Tinney was on. He did the Camino
2
in
weeks.
Spain 2 weeks ago, was it?
Mm.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Sorry, yeah, he did the Camino. It was like 496 miles, and he spoke about his sort of kit management as well. And he had, I think he's covering around about 40 miles a day, John.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were laughing because his socks weren't drying in time by the time he left his digs. So he would tie them onto his vest and be like running along with about six socks tied to him to dry them off as he was going. But that was in Spain, and it was maybe nice,
It's just
not
great.
muddy.
The things that you have to do, like I lost my 3/4 length trousers. All I'd taken was shorts and a pair of 3/4 length trousers. I'd fallen over in this awful cakey mud and was absolutely drenched. And because it's a coastal path, obviously you like weave them into those like pretty little coastal towns, and they're packed with people. So I would come off the trails absolutely caked in mud, and I just remember this like toddler absolutely staring at me like, what has happened to you? I was like, I've got to clean my clothes, I've got to sort myself out. And I tucked my 3/4 length trousers into like the bungee cords in the back of my bag, and they just dropped off somewhere. I'm like, oh, now I've got to do like 10 days with shorts.
Wow.
And just for everybody, it's May time that we're speaking here, so
Mm.
almost getting into British summertime and right down south, you know, where it's like the English Riviera, you know, it's and yet that's the conditions that you were having to cope with as well, and you still persevered, and you still got the job done, the FKT in the bag. Actually, we're going to put on the show notes a link to your FKT, like on the the FKT website, because
Yeah.
there's good blogs there and stuff like that people can go and consume that for themselves, because it gives a real insight. But thank you. And where does it finish? What?
So I did it the other way around to how people usually did it. So I started at Poole and finished in Minehead, and that was just logistically that worked better for me because
So
there's
was that east to west?
yeah. I had
Yeah.
to think about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, just because there's a ferry right at the start if you do it that way. Whereas if you don't know what time you're going to finish, really, do you? So having a ferry right at the end.
Can I, since we're speaking about feet-ish still, you're an Innovate sponsored athlete. What were you wearing on your feet? What shoes did you have?
I wore the Trail Flies. I wore one pair of Trail Flies for the entire thing, and
Wow.
I laugh because I always say that they were like Innovate sandals by the time I finished, but they're such a brilliant, versatile shoe. Yeah, great for like mixed terrain. Yeah, really good shoe.
Yeah. That's what I used, John, for the lap. So
Okay.
Sarah and Stephen endorse the Trail Fly.
Oh.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
A great shoe.
Is that your shoe of choice for the backyard stuff, Sarah?
So I started in Trail Flies this time. It was so compact that I just changed into road flies. Everyone else seemed to be wise to that. They seem to be wearing road shoes on this course.
Okay. There's a wee segue back into the backyard thing. Right?
Seen that.
59. What was your longest before? What's the longest you've done?
In a backyard,
Yeah.
that'd be Rock. That was 41.
Okay.
So it's a day and a half longer.
Yeah.
How did you feel at 59? Because you were the last one standing. Could you have kept going?
So I wasn't expecting, obviously we discussed trying to get into the 70s. So that was kind of in my head. I don't like to work to a target because I always think once you get there, you'll just stop. But I had in my head that that's kind of the first, like the next stop kind of thing, and then we'd work from there. And the thing with Alex, who finished second, the assist, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, he never really looked like very, very strong. Like he would come in and he'd look a bit stiff, and so there was never any, in a way that's harder, isn't it? Because we never like had a sudden like drop off. But he just kept, somehow he just found it in himself to just keep going and going and going. So I kind of, to answer your question, I guess it was the second to last lap. I think he got lost. And then I thought, oh, because it was the third night at that point, which the third night, that's hard, isn't it? And I think that was unknown territory for him too. So as soon as he got lost, I thought, oh, I wonder, like, how long, once you get lost here, it's very well marked course. To be fair to him, there's loads of options. So, like, I'm surprised nobody else got lost in a way on that second night or the third night. But I've forgotten what your question was.
No, it's okay. I loved your answer. Honestly, I love
know.
that you're saying, but the fact that you're saying, was it the second night or the third night? And the people are living their lives while you're doing this. People are going to work, having weekends, and doing all the things that, I'm going to use the word normal. I'm not saying you're not normal, but what normal people do of a weekend, right? And people also have said, how can you get lost on a loop you've done 56 or 57 times? But the tiredness and the mental fatigue must be.
Around you are, and you're trying to keep it together, aren't you? And the other thing that I've got like the other thing about Alex is he doesn't have a big ultra running history, so he's relatively new to ultras, which obviously means that, if you've never done a third night before, like, I was trying to like think about what I was like going through my first night on an ultra. You fall to bits, don't you? I think the only reason that you can keep it together is if you have done it before and you know that you have the ability to just like keep your mind about you and push through almost. Yeah, there was so many turn-offs where if you didn't see the arrow, you could have gone straight, you could have gone left. It all looked the same. It was so easy to get lost.
Mm.
And then I think on his last lap, he got lost again, and he phoned in and said, "I don't know where I am. Someone's gonna have to come and get me." Yeah.
And by the way, I just thought of a quick question here. Do you catch a cat nap between laps ever?
I didn't. So
No.
I went on a podcast with Alex, which was really interesting, and we were talking about our strategies. And his was like completely the opposite to mine. So he's like predominantly a road runner. So he's a much faster runner than me. So in the night, would do super super quick laps, and then he was sleeping for 10 minutes in between laps. I'm not a fast runner, and also I've never slept on a backyard ultra. I've never needed to sleep on a backyard before.
Okay.
I think that's something that I'll have to work on going forward if I want to get into yardage. Because how long can you go without sleep?
Well, that's it. We'll find out soon enough, I feel. But another then question. So Alex, it became into your knowledge that he'd phoned for him to come and get collected out in the course. He was wandering about half asleep, I'd imagine, by that point. And then at that point, does the penny drop that, okay, well, that's me now. I'm not now having to go back out and do my 60th lap.
Yeah,
Do you know it?
and it was a bit of a mixed feeling, to be honest.
Mhm.
Obviously, on one hand, you want to see how far you can go. If you've got it in your mind that you've got yourself sorted now, you can go on into whatever 70s. It's like you've put a lot of work in to get where you are to then just stop if you feel like relatively good as feel after all that running. And then obviously on the flip side, it's like it's not nice to see someone having to stop for that reason too.
Yeah.
I think, getting lost it's not a very nice reason to have to stop, and you just think actually we could have probably worked together a little bit more in terms of that. But I think it was an issue in terms of the pacing. I think we had discussed, or maybe we could work together a little bit more, but he just couldn't run my pace, and I just couldn't run his pace, so that wasn't really an option.
We should say a massive thank you to Alex Sweet for being there and being that assist and taking it to 59 yards for you. It's quite a fun. I never realised he was new to the game, relatively new. So to do that, that's quite phenomenal. So massive kudos to Alex. That's brilliant, Stephen.
But I was just thinking when Sarah was speaking there, like once you're up to 59 laps and you were still in fine fettle by the sounds of what you're saying, I'm sure it wasn't all plain sailing. You didn't get run for 60 hours and everything's hunky dory, but you were good to go again. And it's almost like I'm comparing it to sometimes I just want, when I'm doing like a marathon training block or something like that, I almost want just to get dropped in the later stages of a long run so that I can get all those familiar feels of uncomfortableness and things like that. But to be at 60 hours into a race and still be up for going on, it's hard. It's a lot of investment in time and effort to get to that point that, well, we'll speak about what's next soon, but it's almost like that's a missed opportunity to see how much I could have got into the 70s or even beyond that. So I was just relating it to sort of in my own head because I can't relate to running for 60 hours if I'm honest, Sarah. And I don't know if I ever will. No, I can pretty much certainly say that I shan't. John, on the other hand,
Oh, I want to go till I can't go any further, and I don't know where that is. I don't know where that is. I have
oh, man.
did you have an awareness? Did you care what the Belgians were doing? Because we spoke recently to Karen Weber, and Karen is involved with the timing sort of side of things, and she was telling us in great detail about this super spreadsheet thing that was on the go, and they had an eye on that. So was that an awareness thing when you were running your run?
So every now and again when we came in, people would give us little updates on other countries. Like for example, in Ireland, I had to stop running. We knew about
Yeah.
that. So they were kind of drip feeding us little bits of information, but obviously, like your head's quite busy, isn't it? You kind of you consumed in like get a toasty when I stop next time, or like change your shoes or socks or whatever. So I guess like they were drip feeding us bits, but wasn't really. I mean, it was crazy though when I like had been home, like not been home, but I would stopped on the way. I'd had a meal, had a shower. They're still running. Got home, then drove home, and they're still running. So
Yeah.
that like that blew my mind. Like yeah, I don't know. There's no other way to get
You,
it. Blue.
you're saying it blew your mind, but does it also inspire you as well to see how far is that limit? You don't know. I'm not asking you to put a limit on it because you've said already, once you put a number on it, that's you limiting yourself. But does that sort of what the Belgians did and other teams, does that inspire you to think, yeah, I can go further?
Absolutely, it just shows that it can be done. And I think the thing that kept them going from like reading and hearing about it was they were friends, so they worked as a team. That was the thing that gave
Yeah.
them the like little bit of oomph maybe against the other teams. Like they were saying that they trained together. Yeah, it's super interesting, isn't it?
Why, very interesting. And I want to get to like that 60th, no, sort of 59th yards you've won. And you already spoke, Sarah, around about it being a smaller scale just because of the number of participants. And maybe that sort of sense of occasion or whatever was still there. I'm not sure. But what, and you also spoke earlier about, I wrote it down actually, the at-large list. Yeah, is that what it was? But the winner getting a golden ticket. Yeah. So you're the winner. You're into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Yeah. What can you tell the listeners what that golden ticket entails?
Yeah, so next year in October, I'll be going to Tennessee, to Big's backyard, which will be um, basically everybody who either won their event in those 63 or whatever countries it was, or anybody on the at-large list. So I think there's 70 of us in total, and we'll be at the individual championships. So we'll be going head to head.
Brilliant.
It's like the Champions League, the Super Bowl, the I don't know, something else, the
Because
Grand
they
Slam.
because they alternated, don't they? It's a singles event one year, then it's a team event the next year. So next year it's the sort of individual athletes event. How? Sorry, there's multiple questions going through my head. When does training start for October 25?
When does training ever end?
Yeah, so you're in it now. You're in it now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm never very serious about, like, I never call it training. I just do what I do. I love running, it's never a chore. It's never I just do it for the love of it. And It's like not the thing that, oh, I've got to go and get 10 miles done now. It's like the thing that I look forward to doing. But you're right, I probably need to be a bit more serious about it, don't I? You're right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
don't know.
I think that's my favouriteest answer ever on this podcast. I love that. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Do you have a coach yet?
No, I don't. And no. And so when then people follow up with, so you self-coach? I'm like, not really.
And I just run. I just go and run with my dog. Yeah,
I just run because it's just what I do.
I love it.
It's a
That's
lovely
really,
mindset.
really exciting. It is. It's a brilliant mindset to have. Right. There was a weekend, maybe a month ago now, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, when a group of women had a little bash across the Pennine Way. What caught my eye was their tea boy that was hanging around. Damien Hall was hanging around at villages and stuff and making cups of tea and pot noodles and stuff. What's the thinking behind that weekend, Sarah? If you can share that.
A lot of us are going to be doing the sparring in January, and lots of the women that attended are going to do the sparring, but we all wanted to do a little recce, and we just thought it'd be amazing to drag lots of people in and make it really fun and go together. It was amazing. It was so fun, but also, there's some really experienced spiners in that group. And for me as a spine newbie, I was able to be really annoying and I asked loads of questions. And the tea wasn't bad, yeah.
Brilliant. It has been questioned before, the quality of Damien's tea, so I'm glad to see he was up to the mark on this one. So, spine kit. Have you got all your kit for January?
Yeah, so obviously I'm really lucky that Innovate has provided me with loads of gear. That list is never ending, and they changed it maybe like a few weeks ago, which I think is super last minute. When to be honest, it's it's the brain space that the spine takes up. Yeah, it just feels like it's never ending. And another thing that I think I was talking to Mel about it. We were saying that, like, because there's lots of people doing the spine, there's lots of people posting about doing the spine, you're forever flooded with like, oh, should I try that? Should I be doing that? It's like, it's quite constant. I'm ready for it. I'm over it already.
Like information overload almost. It's almost like the almost polar opposite of you going away and doing a self-supported FKT, that you've just got yourself and your the influences are little and the noise around it is little, whereas this is somewhat at the other end of that scale by the sounds of it, Sarah.
It is absolutely. I think that's what it is. Like it's a bucket list race. It's, when people find out that you a runner, the first thing that they ask you is, "Oh, have you done the spine?" And I love, like it looks like an adventure, doesn't it? It's like it's an adventure race, really. And I'm looking forward to actually starting and getting in it and just, like being out there on my own
Yeah.
in weather. Like I'm looking forward to that element of challenge. But yeah, I just need the noise to stop.
I suppose that there has been a bit of a oversaturation with spine-related content. That weekend helped to fuel that, though, doesn't it? Because they brought a lot of focus. Have you traversed the Pennine Way? Have you had your foot on the route all the way?
So I fast packed the route I think a couple of summers ago. So I have done but obviously it looks so different in summer. And then I've done lots of recce's, like refresher recce's. I've got a little bit left to do, which I'll probably. I think we've got some snow coming, so I might get with all of my kit and see how that feels.
I love the smile on Sarah's face when she's talking about going out in the snow to test her kit. Brilliant. Oh dear, it's brilliant. Poles. What poles do you use?
So I did have some black diamond ones. I think because but I use some I just got some Alp kit ones that I use on the coastal path that held up really well. Yeah, just some carbon Alp kit ones. They're good.
Brilliant. Cool. So poles is a thing that was new to us in the summer. We were talking about a lot of people we knew were using poles, but there are other poles outside the Lecky as well, which is brilliant. So thank you for that, Stephen.
Well, we've already spoken about summer year 2025 plans, the Spine in January, a trip to Tennessee in when's that, October 25?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Is that's enough for most people? Yeah. But I'm feeling that there's something missing in the middle of that for Sarah. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
there is. I don't know what yet, but there will be
Okay.
some
Yeah. A
something self.
personal adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll need
Cape
it.
Wrath. Have you ever fancied Cape Wrath?
Done Cape Wrath. I did it the year that Debbie did it.
Of course you have.
It was amazing. Do you know what? I would say that that's my like most enjoyable ultra journey because I did it obviously within the race, so I treated it like a holiday, like and it was just stunning. I loved it.
There's a lot of race organisers rubbing their hands at Sarah Perry saying things like that, by the way, right now. So, and a lot actually, when you were speaking earlier on, I was thinking that Southwest Coastal Path marketing page is getting a soundbite of this in their content next week, by the way, because you were speaking about that and I was imagining it. It was like, oh, sounds great.
There's a lot of people are still, we mentioned about the rise of backyard ultras. There's a lot of people, ultra marathons are still new to them. What would you give any advice to somebody that's thinking about taking up? I'm not talking about going out and doing 600 and odd miles, I'm not talking about that, but talking maybe doing 30, 40, 50 miles. Is there any common mistakes that you see, or what advice would you give to somebody thinking about getting into that game, Sarah?
I was thinking, I can't really comment on kind of what I see. I have one friend in particular that did her first ultra on the 13 Valleys route, which was really fun.
Oh, yeah.
She did the 50k, and I can't remember what mine was in K, but we were able to like prepare kind of together. Like we had the run up together. We did lots of recce's together because there's an overlap with the routes. And it was so funny because she does everything completely to the book. So like we would go on a run together. She'd be having 90 grams of carbs an hour. I'd have like a sandwich and we get back, she'll be stretching and like, yeah, I'll just probably foam roll when I get home, and I'm just so yeah, no, she just does everything. But I guess it's easy to get swept away in like what you see on social media, isn't it? Like everything on social media looks glossy and easy, and I imagine things like people don't really talk about things like recovery and stuff like that, do they? And the nitty gritty of ultra running. But yeah, can't really comment on that. Although maybe backyard ultras are a good place to start. You know, they're accessible, aren't they? If you think about the accessibility of a backyard ultra compared to a point to point, you don't have to do any nav unless you get lost. You don't have to do any worrying about like support. You're getting a checkpoint every hour. Yeah, I'd say that they're quite accessible. You can choose your distance, can't you? You can go and just
Mhm.
see. You can turn up and run 4 miles, or see if you can run your first ultra. It's quite well structured in that way.
I've said that. I'd love to do a backyard ultra, and I will at some point. I haven't yet. But the first one for me will be a recce to see how it feels and what's happening and what pace I would need to go, and then what sort of admin you're doing. But you mentioned the R word, recovery.
Mhm.
How was your recovery from 59 yards? Do you recover well generally?
Yeah, I can recover quite well generally. I think the more volume that you do and the more longer ultras you do, the more your body kind of adapts to it. Like if I think back to my first 100, I was absolutely ruined. Whereas, you can do 100 and, um, maybe be running again if you needed to within a few days. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, because I'm not coached, I do a lot of running to feel. Like I'm quite in tune with what feels right. If I need like lots of time to recover and rest, I'll just take it. But also, I've got the dog nipping at my heels, ready to go out. So I'll do lots of like walking, or like short runs after a big event.
I love the mindset. I really do. It's just what comes through is the pure joy of being outside and running. It doesn't have to get any more complicated than that. It's just so happens that you're bloody good at doing the long stuff as well, which is brilliant. It's great.
Oh,
I'm fair puggled even listening to all this.
I know, I've got a page full of notes here, Sarah. I'll have to go. We often, when we first started doing this, Sarah, we would probably go back and listen to the podcasts more than we do now because we've kind of gotten, I was going to say skilled, that would be a stretch. We've gotten used to doing it and we can actually take in information whilst we're speaking now more. But this is one of these ones that I'm looking forward to going back and recapping myself, Sarah, because you've touched on so much. And it's like we've also barely scratched the surface as well, despite it being your second appearance on the podcast. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. John, have we managed to get through our rather large question set that we sent to Sarah?
Well, we sent Sarah a question set. We've sort of skirted around it, and Sarah's been brilliant at actually skirting it with us and coming up with some fantastic answers. So I offer no apologies because it was in the ballpark of the sort of questions we were going to ask.
He's there
But
or thereabouts.
there or thereabouts. But there is one in there about before we get to the final two, the big questions that listeners are desperate to hear the
Hanging.
answers to. And that's one about rituals, routines, things that you do before a race. Is there anything you can share? Is there anything that Sarah Perry is part of her build up?
So not so much rituals, but I always like to like tie up any odd ends so I've not got anything to worry about. And any extra time that I've got, because obviously tapering, I like to like dive into the details. So like things like the route or put a spreadsheet together with any details that I might need, like checkpoints or I don't know, anything on the route that I might want to make a note of. Make a nutrition plan, think about kit, look at the weather, basically just dive into the deets.
Brilliant. Yeah. Immerse yourself. And I like that bit you're saying tie everything off. Because you don't want anything getting in your head. You want to be focused on what you're doing, don't you? So that's a brilliant bit of advice as well.
Mhm.
And
Thank
then
you.
you
Absolutely love that.
stop, do you?
Okay. The
Okay,
last two, Stevie boy.
last couple of questions. Dialect dictionary, Sarah, have you had a chance to think of a
Yeah, so
Or
I used
what
my
difference?
so I used my two that I know last time.
All right. I know it comes harder.
But I've got one for you. So I've got Clag because obviously everywhere else it's just mist, isn't it? But as soon as you cross that Cumbria border, it's suddenly Clag.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
Clag or claggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm amazed we've got to this point.
We have clag. I think we have clag on the hills around here as well. So it's certainly a term that I'm familiar with in my hill running pals.
See, I would call it mist.
Yeah,
I would
clag.
call it mist.
Or the Oakhill Hills, which is just adjacent to where I am, just in between Perth and Stirling. And it's quite a claggy range of hills.
Maybe it's
Okay.
a hill thing then, not a Cumbria thing.
But it
Maybe
could be one of the guys who I run with is from Lancashire, see,
that
which I know
brought
is a
it
wee
up.
kind of roughly in the same jurisdiction.
I'm sure we've one there, but
Don't get involved in
Sorry,
that.
I'm just going to like I'm digging a hole for myself, just wind back and just confirm that clag is entered into our dictionary and pass over to John for the final question of the evening.
Brilliant. Last time, Sarah, you hit us with Juice by Lizzo with your song choice, an absolute banger, if I say so myself. We're now on the Buff Buff Collection Volume 9. So what song is Sarah Perry going to share with the Young Hearts Run Free listeners?
obviously some more cheesy pop. Um, this time I'm going to go for Chapel Rowan after midnight. I've had Chapel Rowan on repeat. Paul Luke in the cars listening to the same three songs over and over for the past month. So yeah,
Ah, brilliant. My daughter Megan was driving me up to the West Highland Way prize celebration thing up in Fort William. We celebrated Father's Day, I think a week later, because I was down in the lakes doing some in the week on Father's Day. And she introduced me to Chapel Rowan on that drive up. So
love
brilliant.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The new one for me.
Gonna love
Um,
it.
yeah, and as will our listeners if they haven't listened in to Chapel Rowan. Sarah, another fascinating chat, and the time just flies in so quickly. If you don't mind, we're not going to say any more about the spine just now because we've reached that saturation point. But maybe in February we could maybe have another wee chat about it. Let's leave that door open just now. But for now, thank you so much. I love the fact you've got that golden. Do you actually get a physical golden coin?
Yeah, you get a golden coin with Laz's dog on. Yeah.
Oh,
Brilliant.
brilliant.
Oh, I love that. No,
I'll
I'm
make
not
sure.
saying I'd want it. I think it's brilliant. You've got it. I think it's brilliant. You've got it. But it's absolutely fantastic. And I love that the rise in 2024 has been quite phenomenal for you. And I hope and I do believe that 2025 could be even better. I do think Sarah Perry is just getting started. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. I'm going to hand over to Stephen to say a bye-bye.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure to meet you for the first time, Sarah. Really enjoyed that chat. And do you know what? It's like you spoke about your race management and your organizational skills, and I can see a bit of the teacher coming out in you there. Just in terms of like planning class sessions or class plans and things like that as well. And it's amazing how we can transfer these skills from our day job and apply them to our love of our hobby as well. And it sounds like it really helps it, by the way. I maybe need to take a wee leaf out of your book on that front, I must say. But no, can't wait to see what is round the corner for you with the spine early in the year, and then that big trip over to Tennessee is just going to be sensational. So thank you so much, and we'll be keeping a close eye on how your 2025 turns out, which I think will be brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on. Thank you.
All right, more than welcome.